Hi guys, so this is the Ironcat GHero 8K, yet another Chinese mouse that has received some praise recently, and I was pretty eager to try it out. Shape-wise, it is pretty clear that this is a copy from Vaxee's NP-01 and NP-01S shapes. I think it's more like the NP-01 because this mouse is basically 2 to 3 millimeters wider from every spot I measured it, and around 2 millimeters taller than the NP-01S that I have here. I don't have the non-S model anymore, so I could measure it, but yeah, in hand it feels a lot chunkier than the NP-01S, which is pretty much my favorite shape of all time, and based on the ELO shapes measurements, which honestly are not always totally reliable, the GHero is pretty much the same as the NP-01. So it is quite a chunky boy with some asymmetrical curvature going on. For me, this shape was okay, but I still very much prefer the NP-01S size. This is a pure preference thing, however, and some of you might enjoy this more than the quite thin NP-01S. Mouse weighs just around 61 grams on my scale, and the weight seems to be balanced pretty nicely, so it is a quite comfortable mouse to use. One thing I would love to have on the mouse, however, is some kind of coating. The mouse shell is pretty much just bare plastic, and while some say it has matte coating, I don't think it's the case. I opened the mouse and the underside of the shell has this exact same texture and feeling, so I'm pretty sure they left the standard versions completely uncoated. This surface feels very slippery to my hand, especially when my palm gets sweaty. Luckily they include some pretty nice grips with the mouse, so with those the problem is no more. I would still prefer them to implement the Pro version coating to the standard models as well, and even though I haven't used the Pro version myself, I am pretty sure it's better than this service. The build quality on this mouse is actually very solid, and the sides are pretty rigid. I can actuate the side buttons while pressing from the sides, but that hasn't happened to me even once while in actual use. The main buttons have some wobbling going on, but it is not anything major, so I would say it is a pretty well built mouse overall. The main buttons are the transparent Huano blue shell pink dots that we see on so much mice these days, and the implementation feels really nice. There is some annoying post travel if I press the button from the front, but when clicked next to the scroll wheel, the clicks feel really crisp. The side buttons are another one of my main gripes with this mouse, and they just go inside the mouse way too much. The scroll wheel that resembles the X-Refi scroll wheel a lot is nice and works flawlessly. The reason this being the same wheel as the older X-Refi mice is most likely that Ironcat was X-Refi's OEM manufacturer, and might still be, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, then to the wireless performance. The mouse is capable of 8K polling rate with this additional dongle that I have here, and that is pretty much what I performed my testing with. Sadly, this mouse is not recognized by the XLAT, so no click latency results this time, but instead let's focus on the motion latency and polling stability aspect more. At 8K polling, the mouse clocks in pretty nice results with a delay of around -0.7 milliseconds. With 4K polling, I got a really consistent result of -0.5 milliseconds, and the polling stability with 8K is what really surprised me here. And as we can see, the graph is really clean and tight. There were some occasional outliers due to missed polls, but nothing major. With 4K and 2K polling, however, there were some really noticeable instabilities in the graphs, especially with 4K polling. So I think their main focus here was a solid 8K experience with the cost of a worse 4K stability. I didn't notice any weird issues due to this in-game, however, but if you miss your shots in-game and don't want to blame yourself, there's another excuse to use. And yes, the pairing process of the 8K polling dongle was horrendous, and thankfully Liam, Aim Adept, had made a fantastic video covering these steps, so if you have any trouble with that, check the review from Aim Adept's channel. But yeah, overall I think this mouse is one of the better Chinese mice out there, and for a price of $50 and $17 for the 8K dongle, it delivers a solid 8K performance with a decent build. The only things really revealing this as a Chinese budget mouse is the lackluster coating and the side buttons. If those would be in check, I necessarily would not be able to say straight up that this is a budget mouse. But if you think those are not things that matter to you, this is a solid choice for a wireless NP-01 copy. I just, however, want to point out that with a little bit more money, you could get the OP-1 8K from Game Gear instead, which is wired, yes, but it is from a reputable brand and is pretty much the best mouse out there performance-wise and also build quality-wise. The reason I pointed this out is that there are so many of these Chinese brand mice out there currently, and there is always a risk of not getting support if you ever need it with those. We should not forget that we currently have some good options from more reputable brands in the similar price range, from Endgame Gear for example. But yeah, that is it for this video. Thanks for watching and goodbye.